Imagine this. A man hijacks a plane, gets $200,000 in cash, straps on a parachute, and jumps into a stormy night, vanishing without a trace. This isn't the plot of a Hollywood blockbuster. It's the true story of one of the most audacious and baffling crimes in American history. The legend of D.B. Cooper died. It all began on the day before Thanksgiving, November 24, 1971. A man who called himself Dane Cooper boarded Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 in Portland, Oregon. He was heading to Seattle, just a short 30-minute flight. Witnesses describe him as a man in his mid-40s, wearing a black business suit, a crisp white shirt, and a black necktie. He ordered a bourbon and soda and seemed perfectly calm, just another business traveler on a routine flight. But Dane Cooper was anything but ordinary. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a note to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner, thinking it was just another lonely businessman's phone number. She initially slipped it into her pocket without looking. Cooper then leaned closer and whispered, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." The note was printed in neat, all-caps letters. It stated that he had a bomb in his briefcase and that he wanted her to sit next to him. Shaken, she did as he asked. He calmly opened his briefcase just enough for her to see a glimpse of red cylinders, wires, and a battery. Cooper's demands were precise and delivered without panic. He wanted $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills, for parachutes to primary and to reserve, and a fuel truck ready to refuel the plane. Upon arrival in Seattle, he was polite and considerate throughout the ordeal, even insisting on paying for his drink. He specified the parachutes should be civilian, not military, another detail that hinted at some specialized knowledge. When the flight captain, William Scott, was informed of the situation, he immediately contacted air traffic control, who in turn alerted the FBI. The airline's president, Donald Nyrop, authorized the payment of the ransom, prioritizing the safety of the 36 passengers and 6 crew members on board. While authorities scrambled to gather the cash and parachutes on the ground, Flight 305 circled the Puget Sound area for nearly 2 hours. To the unsuspecting passengers, the delay was explained as a minor mechanical issue. Cooper remained composed, sipping his bourbon. Upon landing at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport, the plane was directed to a remote, brightly lit section of the tarmac. The exchange was executed exactly as Cooper had planned. In return, Cooper allowed all passengers and 2 of the flight attendants, including Florence Schaffner, to deplane safely. The passengers walked off the plane, completely unaware they had just been part of a high-stakes hijacking. But Cooper's plan was far from over. He wasn't just getting off the plane with the money. He was taking the plane with him. He instructed the flight crew, the pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and 1 remaining flight attendant, Tina Mucklow, on his next move. They were to fly to Mexico City, but he gave them very specific, highly unusual flight instructions. The plane, a Boeing 727, was to fly at a low altitude of 10,000 feet, much lower than a typical commercial flight. The speed was to be kept slow, around 150 knots. And most strangely, the landing gear had to remain down and the wing flaps set at 15 degrees. The flight crew knew these parameters were odd and dangerous. Flying a 727 slowly, at low altitude, with the landing gear down, was technically possible but not standard procedure. It suggested Cooper knew exactly what he was doing and had a deep understanding of the aircraft's capabilities. His request for the rear air stair of the 727, a unique feature of that model, to be left unlocked, was the final, chilling piece of the puzzle. He was planning to jump. Around 7:40 p.m., the refueled plane took off from Seattle, heading south into a dark and stormy night. The weather was terrible, with heavy rain, high winds, and near-freezing temperatures at that altitude. Cooper ordered Tina Mucklow, the last flight attendant, to go into the cockpit and stay there with the door closed. She was the last person to see him. It indicated that the aft air stair at the back of the plane had been opened. The pilot asked over the intercom if everything was okay. There was no reply. Dan Cooper, along with $200,000 and a parachute, had stepped off the staircase and jumped into the freezing, black wilderness of the Pacific Northwest. He had vanished. When the plane landed safely in Reno 2 hours later, authorities swarmed the aircraft. All they found was Cooper's black tie, a tie clip, and 2 of the 4 parachutes he had requested. The man himself was gone. An unprecedented manhunt was immediately launched. They searched on foot, with helicopters, and with planes. But they found nothing. No body, no parachute, no tattered money bag. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. For years, the FBI chased down thousands of leads. The name DB Cooper was actually a media mistake. The hijacker had identified himself as Dan Cooper. But an early news report misidentified a local person of interest named D.B. Cooper, and the name stuck. The investigation became one of the longest and most expensive in the Bureau's history. They investigated over 800 suspects, from experienced paratroopers and disgruntled veterans to career criminals. Yet, every lead turned into a dead end. Then, in 1980, a glimmer of hope. A young boy named Brian Ingram was vacationing with his family along the banks of the Columbia River near Tennebar, Washington. While digging a fire pit in the sand, he uncovered 3 rotting bundles of cash. He had found nearly $6,000. The FBI was alerted, and when they checked the serial numbers, they got a match. It was a portion of the ransom money given to D.B. Cooper. This discovery reignited the case, but also deepened the mystery. The location was miles away from the primary search area. How did the money get there? Did Cooper lose it during his jump? Did he land in the river and drown? Or did he bury it and intend to come back for it later? Theories swirled, but definitive answers remained elusive. The rest of the $200,000 has never been found. Over the decades, the legend of D.B. Cooper grew. He became a folk hero to some, an anti-establishment icon who beat the system and got away with it. Countless books, documentaries, and even a movie have been made about him. Dozens of people have claimed to be D.B. Cooper or have been named as suspects by amateur sleuths. There was Richard McCoy Jr., a Vietnam veteran who pulled off a similar hijacking just a few months later but was caught. There was Dwayne Weber, who on his deathbed told his wife, "I am Dan Cooper." And there were many others, each with a tantalizing but ultimately unprovable story. So, what really happened to D.B. Cooper? Did he survive the perilous jump? It's highly unlikely. He jumped into a raging storm, at night, over treacherous, mountainous terrain. The wind chill would have been 70 degrees below zero. Even an expert skydiver would have struggled to survive, and it's unclear if Cooper was an expert. He didn't seem to notice that one of the reserve parachutes he was given was a non-functional training unit a mistaken experienced jumper would likely have caught. This has led many investigators to believe he died that night, his body lost forever in the vast wilderness. Or, did he pull off the perfect crime? Is it possible that he was a skilled survivalist, a former paratrooper who knew exactly where he was landing? Perhaps he had an accomplice waiting for him on the ground. Maybe he landed safely, buried some of the money, changed his identity, and lived out the rest of his life in quiet anonymity, a secret millionaire. In 2016, after 45 years of dead ends, the FBI officially closed the D.B. Cooper case, concluding that their resources were better spent on other priorities. But closing the case doesn't solve the mystery. The fate of the man who called himself Dan Cooper remains one of the greatest unsolved puzzles of our time. A man who became a legend by stepping out of a plane and into history. What do you think happened? Did he perish in the wilderness? Or did he make a clean getaway? Let me know your theories in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this dive into history's great mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more.